Hundreds of migrants are feared dead after an overcrowded ship sinks off the coast of Libya. Could drones reduce waiting times for HIV test results in Malawi's rural areas? And Johnny Depp's doggy drama Down Under is over. His apology video goes viral. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Now, more details are surfacing about an overcrowded ship that sank in the Mediterranean Sea between Libya and Italy last week. The UN Refugee Agency says that up to 500 migrants may have died in the tragedy. The Somali government says about 200 or more Somalis may have perished when the ship went down. After talking to survivors, UNHCR says the overall death toll may even be higher. Now, 37 men, 3 women and 3-year-old child survived the disaster after being rescued by a merchant ship. The surviving group that was taken to Greece on April 16th included Somalis, Ethiopians, Egyptians and 1 Sudanese. The survivors recounted that they had been among 100 to 200 people who had set sail from Libya last week bound for Italy. After several hours at sea, human traffickers on board the vessel tried to move them onto a bigger ship that was already packed with migrants. The ship sank before the survivors could board it. Now, to fill in the gaps in this tragedy, reporter Nick Bennett joins me live via Skype from Athens, Greece. Now, Nick, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, first, do you know of any rescue or such mission out there up to this point?
There haven't been any reports of a search and rescue mission, at least from anywhere from Greece as of yet. Right now, the assessments are still being made by the authorities and by the UNHCR based on the accounts of the survivors that were taken to the southern Greek city of Kalamata to find out where exactly this ship may have gone down and where they can pinpoint where they could see if there is anything else out there. But because this reportedly happened now almost a week ago, the chance that there may be any more survivors, unfortunately, is slim to none by this point.
Now, you know, things have been quiet since the last year's big tragedy again. Are we likely to see similar tragic incidents now as the weather improves, or are there other reasons why this might be actually something to worry about?
This is definitely something to worry about, as the main route that many migrants and refugees are taking is shifting back to the Libya-Italy route as opposed to the Aegean route between Turkey and Greece, which had become a major source, a major transit point over the past year. Now with the EU-Turkey deal, which stipulates that migrants and refugees coming into Europe that way will be are subject to deportation back to Turkey. The routes are being more frequently taken again between Libya and Italy, which is, of course, much more dangerous because the Mediterranean Sea is much wider. And also just the fact that they have to leave from Libya, which is in itself still in a state of crisis, whereas opposed to Turkey, things are a little more stable. So it adds a tremendous amount of risk to the route that the migrants and refugees trying to get to Europe have to assess.
Now, Nick, we talk about the Mediterranean, such a wide, vast sea there. What efforts are there in patrolling that area? We know that Frontex was trying to do something, but is it even possible?
Well, there certainly have been more Frontex ships, more patrols coming in to try to put a stop to this. But of course, because the sea is so vast, and because if you close one route and keep an eye on one route, then another one will open, because a lot of the smuggling rackets operating in these areas, be it from Northern Africa or the Middle East or Southern Europe, have been operating for quite some time. And so there's definitely where there's a will, there's a way, as we've seen, because when efforts to stop the Libya-Italy route went into effect more than a year ago, then we saw the shift go from Turkey to Greece. So now that more attention has been put on that, it's shifting backwards in this vicious cycle.
Well, thanks a lot, Nick. Nick Bennett reporting live via Skype from Athens in Greece. U.S. President Barack Obama and Gulf state leaders met in Saudi Arabia on ways they can work more closely to help stabilize the conflict-ridden Middle East region despite differences on the best way forward. President Obama and the 6 members of the Gulf Cooperation Council took a group photo Thursday in Riyadh before opening the one-day summit with a session focusing on the political chaos and fighting in Syria, Yemen, Iraq and Libya. Following a 2-hour closed meeting Wednesday, Mr. Obama and Saudi Arabia's King Salman agreed on the importance of an inclusive approach to de-escalating regional conflicts. President Obama spoke about the Syrian conflict.
Right now, the cessation of hostilities is very fragile and may be breaking down, in part because of the Assad regime's continuing attacks on areas where they perceive they have an advantage. This is part of the reason why I called Mr. Putin on Monday, indicating to him that in the same way that we are continually urging moderate opposition inside of Syria to abide by the cessation of hostilities, he needs to be holding the regime into account.
Following Thursday's summit, President Obama heads to London, where he will address a range of issues with British Prime Minister David Cameron, including countering terrorism, the refugee crisis in Europe and the global economy. For more than 2 decades, Somalia has been described as a failed state, a country controlled by terrorists and warlords, lacking in an effective government and beset by cycles of man-made and natural disasters. However, in recent years, the nation has been rebuilding its economy and re-establishing a functioning government. But important security and financial challenges remain. Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, while speaking at the United States Institute of Peace on Thursday, thanked the African Union mission in Somalia for their partnership with the Somali Armed Forces. But the president also urged the international community to help fund the re-establishment of the Somali National Army.
AMISOM has been a very useful tool for Somalia. African problems, for African solutions. It has been an experiment that I can say is successful. Regarding the issue, yes, there is nothing that continue. This was a gift. These gifts cannot continue. The world now, after all these long years investing AMISOM, is getting fatigue. It's very rational. What we have been asking the world is, which we have say it was short of what the world was supposed to do, is investing Somali National Army or Somali security forces. This has not been enough attention has not been given in the past. Multilaterally, unilaterally and bilaterally, there are many countries who have supported our security sector enormously, among which the United States. But the very small amount of what has been spent in AMISOM will make a lot of difference in Somalia. And that's what today we are brought, that the world has realized that without having a robust, reliable, professional, well-equipped Somali security forces, to maintain AMISOM another 10 years is not possible.
Well, the United Nations says some 300,000 people have been killed in Sudan's Darfur region. Over 4 million people need aid and more than 2 million have been displaced. The United States has expressed concern, both publicly and privately, to the Sudanese government about the ongoing fighting. The Darfur conflict began in 2003 when mainly non-Arab tribes took up arms against the Arab-led government based in Khartoum, accusing it of discrimination. Although violence has eased in recent years, the insurgency continues, and Khartoum has escalated attacks on rebels over the past year. At least 130,000 people have fled fighting in the central Jebel Mara area since mid-January only. Now, the Darfur Women Action Group is a U.S.-based Darfuri-led anti-atrocities organization that has been working to maintain the world's focus on the plight of Darfurians. The group, in partnership with the Sudanese diaspora and Friends of Darfur and Sudan Worldwide, launched a global week of action beginning April the 15th to protest the continuing genocide in Darfur and violence in Sudan. Niamat Ahmadi is the president and founder Darfur Women Action Group and now joins me in studio to tell us more. So you have to emphasize this is a women-led group, right?
Yes.
Yes. First, tell us just briefly why you thought it is important to launch this week of protest.
It is very important because the situation in Darfur continued for over 13 years, and the violence is extremely escalating in the recent months. Between January and February of 2016, the intensive bombing and ground troops are attacking civilians in the central Darfur, Jabal Mara. Many people have been trapped in the mountains within the caves, and the government declared Jabal Mara as a no-go area for UN agencies. So there are people who have fled to the camps and major cities, but there are many more who have been trapped there. And this situation needs to be brought to the attention of the world community.
Now, a few years ago, we talked about Darfur almost every day. Why do you think the focus has shifted? Is it because perhaps the conflict has kind of focused now on a smaller area of the Darfur region?
Unfortunately not, but because the government of Sudan has been successful in isolating Darfur from the outside world. None of the international delegates are allowed to go to visit Darfur. Journalists has not been allowed since 2009. And there is just limited information coming out of Darfur. And because Darfur is not in the news, so many people think it is over. But also the international community is always doing an unfinished business and moving to another crisis. So they have not yet finished their work.
We know that in the case of Sudan and the Sudan region, South Sudan took center stage now for the last 5 years or so. Do you think South Sudan actually took the focus away from Darfur?
To me, it is not about South Sudan took the focus, but the approach taken by the international community, including the United States, to resolving the crisis in Sudan has not been effective. Because the problem is not just in South Sudan. The problem centered in Sudan, where an indicted president, the only sitting head of the state to be wanted by the ICC, sitting and continue to pursue his genocidal policy by attacking the people of Darfur, extending the killing to Nuba Mountain, and the same reason that forced the Southern Sudanese people to move. So if you want to resolve the problem, you have to resolve it comprehensively, not piecemeal solutions.
So, in few words, what are you telling the United States and its leaders about action that should be taken that actually can make a difference in Darfur?
I think there are many actions that can be taken, but immediately I demand that the United States government should at least flew the special envoy to visit Darfur, because the government is blocking Darfur for outsiders to get an accurate information about the situation. The UN Security Council should send an investigative team to find out more about what has been going on in central Jabal Mara in western Darfur and come up with a clear picture of what are the needs, and also humanitarian access supposed to be allowed to all the needy within Darfur, but also in South Kordofan and Blue Nile, and accountability for the crimes committed. This is not just 1 day, 2 days, or a year or so. This is 13 years of a systematic killing of civilians. And rape has been used as a weapon of war, destruction of villages. So I think accountability, as the International Criminal Court has already made its point. So I think there is a lot that needs to be done, and the United States and other leaders should.
Very few seconds. Is there any leadership within Darfur region that has been able to actually voice these concerns from outside? I mean, from within the country?
From within the country, people are extremely oppressed. If you speak, you will be shot, killed. And so many people either in prison or targeted for killing, but people, only those who are outside can be able to speak, because the government has not allowed any space for freedom of expression or assembly or anything to voice your demand from within Darfur.
We believe you.
And that's why we are speaking on behalf of those who cannot speak for themselves.
Definitely, I think people are listening. Thank you very much, Niamat, for joining us today, giving us those insights. Niamat Ahmad is the president and founder of the Washington-based Darfur Women Action Group. We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. While coming up, using drones to save lives in Malawi. Stay with us.
My name is Carla Babb, and I work the Pentagon beat. That access helps me to do better stories. Every day it's my responsibility to collect all of the defense news. It keeps our VOA viewers informed. I get to travel all across the globe. Anything that's defense related and how to protect and keep people safe, that's where I'll go. So it's never a dull moment at the Pentagon. My name is Carla Babb. This is my beat.
Well, it's time for our health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu with the latest news on the fight against the HIV virus. Hello, Lino.
The humanitarian aid group Doctors Without Borders says worldwide goals to curb HIV infection by 2020 will not be met unless aid providers recognize and meet the need for more work in West and Central Africa. In a recently released report, MSF says while HIV prevalence in that region is relatively low, with 2.3% of the population living with the virus, it is still 3 times the worldwide rate, and pockets of that region have prevalence rates as high as 5%. The report urges global donor agencies, governments, and civil society to fast-track a plan to scale up antiretroviral treatment for countries in the region where less than 1/3 of the population in need is currently getting treatment. Now, the United Nations Children's Agency is testing drones in Malawi to see if they can reduce waiting times for HIV test results in rural areas. The first successful flight completed a 10-kilometer route, traveling from a community health center to a hospital in Malawi's capital, Lilongwe. Poor roads and lack of transportation make it hard for mothers in remote areas of Malawi to get to labs capable of testing. Judith Sherman is the head of UNICEF Malawi's HIV and AIDS program.
There are many delays in the continuum of getting HIV-positive children on treatment. They need to come in early for testing, ideally before 2 months, between 6 and 8 weeks. Their tests, the dried blood spots, need to get from the health facilities to one of the 8 laboratories nationwide.
Currently, it can take almost 2 months to get samples from a healthcare facility to a laboratory and for the results to be returned. Motorbike couriers are used to transport samples across often poorly maintained roads.
It's a very painful experience for me because as it is, I don't know whether my child got the disease from me or if he's okay, so the waiting is painful.
The UN Children's Agency has partnered with US-based drone company Martinet to develop the program. Testing is currently conducted using simulated samples. UNICEF says every year around 10,000 children die of the virus, a number the agency says could be tackled by early diagnosis and quality medical care. Now to Uganda. The country has made remarkable progress in respect to addressing the epidemic, but experts worry that numbers of those living with HIV are surging again. Africa 54's Paul Ndiho has our report.
The United Nations says an estimated 34 million people worldwide are living with HIV, and some 30 million people across the globe have died from AIDS-related causes. Sub-Saharan Africa accounts for almost 70% of the global total of new infections. Sheila Birungi Gandhi, Acting Executive Director of the Uganda AIDS Information Center, a non-governmental organization, says her organization continues to play a critical role.
We started with basically laboratory services where we're testing for HIV and providing services. But given the trend of HIV in the country, we progressed into an HIV comprehensive healthcare center.
Since the early 90s, Uganda has been hailed by many as a success story in addressing the HIV/AIDS epidemic. compared to most sub-Saharan African countries. However, critics say that recent AIDS indicators show the country is sliding back into double digits. But Ms. Gandhi dismisses those claims.
We have interventions that help us to prevent HIV, like testing for HIV and AIDS, screening cancer of the cervix, taking males through safe male circumcision, and lots of treatment and care support services with the medical background, the medical interventions.
Analysts say for Uganda, the stakes could not be higher. Marion Natkunda is an advocacy and research manager for the Uganda AIDS Information Center.
Without knowing HIV status, there's no way you're going to actually know whether you're okay or you're not okay. So know your HIV status and let's take it up from there. So us went and camped each and everywhere, wherever we were called upon, even at City Square, even at a bar, even at a lodge, even at the streets. Yeah, we had what they call moonlight testing. Yeah, we would go extremes just to make sure at least a Ugandan knows their HIV status.
During his landmark visit to Africa last year, U.S. President Barack Obama highlighted Africa's achievement in health.
Africa has achieved historic gains in health. The rate of new HIV/AIDS infections has plummeted. African mothers are more likely to survive childbirth and have healthy babies. Deaths from malaria have been slashed, saving the lives of millions of African children.
In July, the 21st AIDS conference will be held in Durban, South Africa. The campaign dubbed AIDS 26 is an opportunity to showcase the progress Africa has made in implementing and funding evidence-based prevention and treatment interventions. Scientists, policymakers, world leaders, and HIV patients will discuss together successes and challenges to the country and the current global epidemic trend. Paul Ndiho, VOA News.
That's our health report for today. To stay in touch for more health news, find me on Twitter at Lenore Mudu. Vincent?
Well, thanks a lot, Lenore. Now be sure to watch Lenore Mudu's health reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Why has this odd video of Johnny Depp and his wife gone viral? We'll explain in a moment. Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Is this one of the most bizarre celebrity apologies ever?
Australians are just as unique, both warm and direct. When you disrespect Australian law, they will tell you firmly.
I am truly sorry that Pistol and Boo were not declared. Protecting Australia is important.
Declare everything when you enter Australia.
Actor Johnny Depp and his wife Amber Heard have issued a somber mea culpa for failing to declare their two Yorkshire Terriers properly when entering Australia last year. Heard was spared a conviction over the dog smuggling saga by an Australian court earlier this week. She pleaded guilty to knowingly producing a false or misleading document, while two other charges of illegally importing her dogs were dismissed. Depp and Heard quickly returned to California, but not before sparking the hashtag war on terriers. Well, next up, the craft of coffee trend is growing 2016, as many customers are demanding an even more boutique brew than ever before. The American market is now so saturated with coffee shops that some are even offering customers the choice of what altitude their coffee is grown at and information about the working conditions of coffee pickers, all in a bid to offer the most unique coffee drinking experience. Inspired by the popularity of boutique coffee purveyors, Starbucks and other chains are taking steps to appeal to the growing ranks of coffee enthusiasts. They are experimenting with different roasting and brewing techniques while providing more information about the origins of their customers' favorites. Well, and finally, here at the Milan Design Fair, the Sofas have a mind of their own. It's claimed to be the world's first Internet of Things sofa. The dynamic sofa moves on its own for visitors to see different arrangements available and can be controlled by holding a hand over certain seats or through a smartphone app. Design Week is composed of two parts: the furniture fair and other events spread across the city in its plazas, museums and stores. Many visitors appear drawn to these green, white and red refrigerators in the shape of Fiat 500 cars. Meanwhile, a furniture design firm is presenting an installation which invites visitors to discover what is hidden inside its designers' minds. And that is what is trending today. Well, a popular Kenyan cartoon series, Tinga Tinga Tales, has been adapted into a live musical performance. In the stage version, the actors dress up as animals and other characters to teach children African folk tales. Lenny Rovago reports from Nairobi.
This performance tells the tale of why the chameleon changes color. Tinga Tinga started as a Kenyan animated TV series in 2010. In the stage version, acclaimed actor John C.B. Okumu plays Mr. Simba, which is Swahili for lion.
It's a different type of acting. So for this is audience participation, drawing a response and seeing people with very happy, smiling faces and shaking hands and dancing with mum and dad.
So far, around 5,000 children have watched the musical.
I liked it because I watch Tinga Tinga most of the times and it's funny.
If you teach kids with creativity and imagination, their minds open up.
Claudia Lloyd created both the TV show and the musical.
It allows them to kind of realise that they've got choices in life and they can make up stories and everything isn't by rote. So it's very important to me that Tinga is fantastical and full of imagination and creativity.
Lloyd says she plans to adapt more of the show's episodes for the stage. Lenny Ruvaga for VOA News, Nairobi.
And that's our show. Good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Okay, you probably know what being married to someone means. But is this expression really about marriage?
Not married. Anna, I know I agreed to name our rock band the English Teachers, but now I'm not so sure.
That's okay. I was never married to that name anyway.
Good. I thought you'd be upset.
Oh, no way, man. I thought we could call ourselves the Rockin' English Teachers.
To use not married this way means you are not attached or committed to something. You don't care about it. This expression is commonly used in the negative form. One of the only times we use it in the positive form is when we talk about work. And that's English in a Minute.